In this video, we're going to continue working through the 10 accidents that we're studying in Lesson 3 in Latin Grammar 1. So far, we've covered number, case, gender, declension, conjugation, mood, and tense. In this lesson, in this video, we're going to study person. Okay, so this is rule number 8 in Lesson 3 on person, the 8th of the 10 accidents of the parts of speech. If you've already gotten through 7 of these, I know that you know what to do, so we're just going to jump right into rule number 8 on person. Personae pronominum sunt tres. The persons of pronouns are 3. So how many persons are there? If we're speaking of pronouns, there are 3 persons. All right? Prima, ego, first I. Ego, first I. First person, I. Secunda, the second person, tu, you, second person. Reliqua pronomina sunt tertiae personae. All other pronouns are of the third person. So ego, I, first person. Tu, you, second person. All other pronouns are third person. Okay? He, she, it, they, and so on. Praeter, except ipse, ipsa, ipsum, which is a pronoun which means himself, herself, or itself. Except for the pronoun ipse, ipsa, ipsum, quod cuius vis est personae, which is of whatever person. Item provocabulum quique quod. Also the pronoun quique quod. It's also of any person. So the person of pronouns is either first, like the pronoun ego, second, like the pronoun tu. All the rest are third person pronouns, except for ipse and qui, which can be of any of the persons. Okay? And then it goes on to explain. Dicimus enim, for we say, ego ipse. Ego is first person, and ipse, I said it means like himself, but if I say ego ipse, it means I, myself. Ego ipse. Ego ipse. So in that example, ipse is first person. Ego ipse. In the next example, we also see ego qui. So we see qui works the same way. I who am teaching this class, ego qui in that example is first person. Then we see tu ipse, ego ipse, I myself. Tu ipse, you, yourself. There, ipse is second person. And then we say tu qui, you who, tu qui, you who are studying in this class, tu qui, their qui is second person. Then we have the example, Caesar ipse, or Caesar himself. Caesar himself. There, Caesar is third person, he, third person, and qui is also third person, or ipse, I'm sorry. Ipse is third person, Caesar himself. And then Caesar qui, Caesar who ruled the Romans. Okay, Caesar who, their qui is third person. It refers to Caesar, he. Okay, so ipse and qui can be any of the persons. Ego is first person, tu is second person. All of the other pronouns are third person except for ipse and qui, because they can be any of the 3 persons. I hope that's clear. And then it says sic in plurali, so also in the plural. And it gives plural examples. Nos means we, ipsi, we ourselves. Ipsi would be first person. Vos means you all. Vos ipsi, you all yourselves. There, ipsi would be second person, and so on, etc. Okay? And the rest. So The person of pronouns are three. Ego, first person, prima. Tu, you, secunda, second person. Reliqua pronomina sunt tertiae personae. All the other pronouns are of the third person except for two, except for ipse and qui. They can be of any person, all right? And the same is true in the plural. The next part says personae verborum sunt tres. Just as there are three persons of pronouns, there are also three persons in verbs. Personae verborum sunt tres. The persons of verbs are three. Prima ut amo. First as amo. Amo, I love. I love. Because it refers to the subject I, it's first person, just like the pronoun ego. Amo, I love. First person. Amas, you love. Second person. You love. Amas. The verb is second person. It has the idea of you love built into the form of the verb. Amas. That says you love. Amo. I love. Okay? And then amat. Tertia persona. Third person. Amat. He loves. The idea he or she or it is built into that verb. Amat. Amat. He loves. Amas. You love. Amo. I love. The person of the verb. Okay? There are three persons of verbs. First person, amo. Second person, amas. Third person, amat. All right? Next, nomina et participia exceptis vocativis incerte sunt personae sicut et verba infinita eam enim induant personam cuius est verbum cui adherent. This is a little trickier one here, so let's work through this translation carefully. So far we've learned about the persons of pronouns and the persons of verbs. In this last part here we talk about the person of nouns and participles, nomina et participia. Okay? Nouns and participles, and then in parentheses it says exceptis vocativis, which means with vocative cases excluded or accepted. So we're not talking about vocative cases. We're talking about the other 5 cases for nouns and participles. With vocative cases excluded. Incerte sunt personae. They are of uncertain person. Okay? Sicut et verba infinita. Just as sicut et also verba infinita. Infinitive verbs. Okay? So nouns and participles with vocative cases excluded are of uncertain person, just as also infinitive verbs. Eam enim induant personam. Enim means because. Because they're of uncertain person. Because induant. They bear, or they wear, literally, they put on, they bear eam personam, that person, cuius est verbum, whose is the verb, cui adherent, to which they adhere, to which they belong. Okay? So nouns and participles are of uncertain person, as well as infinitive verbs, because they take that person whose is the verb to which they adhere or belong. Okay? For example, as ut, ego Marcus Tullius defendi republicam adolescens. Here we see ego, first person. Marcus Tullius, this is talking about Cicero, his name was Marcus Tullius Cicero. Ego Marcus Tullius defendi, I have defended. Rem publicam adolescens. Adolescens is a noun, and it refers to Marcus Tullius. In this sentence, in this verb, he's first person. Therefore, adolescens in this sentence would be a first person noun. Okay? That's what the rule means when it says the nouns are uncertain. They take on that person whose is the verb, of which is the verb, to which they adhere. Okay, that noun adolescens adheres to the verb defendi, which is first person. Therefore, adolescens could be any person, but in this sentence it's first person because of the verb. All right? There's also an example from Livy, which says, Hannibal peto pacem. Hannibal peto pacem. What person is Hannibal? It could be third person, he, but no, because it's actually Hannibal speaking, saying, I, Hannibal, peto pacem. I, Hannibal, seek peace. Okay? And then lastly, there's one last sentence in rule number 8. It says, vocandi casus. Remember before we said nouns and participles with the vocative case is excluded? Well, here we talk about the vocative case and find out why they're excluded. Vocandi casus, the case of calling. That's what vocative case is. Vocandi means of calling. The case of calling, the vocative case. Quia secundis personis tantum adherent. Because only to second persons they adhere. They only belong to second persons. Solum sunt secundae personae. Only are of the second person. Why is the vocative case only second person? Because the vocative case is used when speaking to someone, when calling to someone. So anytime we use the vocative case, we're speaking to someone, and that person is second person. Okay, a person being spoken to. The vocative case is always second person. All right? So vocandi casus, the case of calling, quia secundis personis tantum adherent, because they adhere only to second persons. Solum sunt secundae personae. Only are of the second person. All right? Nouns and participles are of any person. It's uncertain until we figure out what person is identified in the verb to which they belong. But vocative cases, they're not uncertain. They can only be second person because they're always being spoken to someone. That's the content of rule number 8. Talk about the persons of pronouns, which are 3. Then the persons of verbs, which are 3. And then lastly, the persons of nouns and participles are uncertain because they're determined by the verbs to which the nouns and participles belong. Okay? Whatever the person of the verb is that a noun is attached to or adheres to, that's the person of that noun or pronoun, except for vocative cases, because vocative case nouns and participles are always second person. Okay? That's a quick overview of rule number 8. You should be able to go through that translation now, memorize the rules. You don't need to memorize the examples that are given, but you should understand how the examples explain the rules. All of that's explained in your lesson, so you don't have to get all that from this video. This video is just meant to kind of get you going with that new rule, explain the examples, so that you can now turn to the text and study it for mastery. That's rule number 8 in lesson 3. I hope that's helpful to get you going. If you need any help, get in touch with me. God bless your studies.